Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by for today's event, Securing Your Digital Experiences. We will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by for today's event, Securing Your Digital Experiences. We will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience. We will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by and welcome to the Securing Your Digital Experiences webinar. At this time and for the duration of the event, all participants are in a listen-only mode. You may submit questions at any time by that Q&A pod on your screen, and an Adobe representative will come back to you. We will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience. Our speakers today are Matt Davis, Senior Solution Consultant, Digital Media Solutions, APAC; Jason Graff, Senior Solution Consultant, ANZ; Kenneth Yun, Senior Onboarding Specialist, ANZ. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by and welcome to the Securing Your Digital Experiences webinar. At this time,
hello and welcome to Adobe Cloud for Enterprise Security Overview. I'm Matt Davis and I'm also joined by my colleague Jason Grant. We're both Senior Solution Consultants for Adobe, and Kenneth Huang, Senior Onboarding Specialist. And before we talk about security, let's talk about Adobe and changing the world through digital experiences.
The big game streaming on your phone, an interactive online ad campaign, a smartphone app that keeps you on top of your demands at work and at home. These are all digital experiences. Powerful experiences change the way we think, interact, entertain, work, and relate to the world around us. At Adobe, we're changing the world through digital experiences. We create the technology that enables compelling, immersive digital experiences. Experiences informed by insights, supported by data, and brought to life through beautiful, powerful creations. It doesn't matter if you're a designer, a marketer, publisher, or a master storyteller. We help create experiences that make a difference, that truly matter. I'd like to spend a few minutes walking through how we see the current technology landscape and how we make a difference. But first, let me share a little bit about Adobe. Adobe's approach to building great customer experiences is to combine content and data in a thoughtful and sophisticated way. We're the only software company that brings standout content and powerful data together to get results. Without terrific content, you can't break through to engage your customers. Through our creative and document tools, we help you build great experiences and deliver them across every touch point. Without data-driven insights, you can't target, measure, and optimize to get the results you need. Through big data, we help you understand and adapt the experience so it reaches the right person in the right place at the right time. On our foundation of content and data, Adobe has developed a cloud platform to build great customer experiences. Today, as part of this platform, we offer 3 clouds. Creative Cloud gives people everything they need to create wherever inspiration strikes. It seamlessly combines the world's best creative desktop apps with mobile apps, a community for inspiration and ideas, and a marketplace to buy and sell creative content and services. The Adobe Document Cloud is a portfolio of secure digital document solutions that speeds business transactions through digital document workflows. It includes Acrobat and e-signature services, plus web and mobile apps that integrate into existing enterprise systems. The Adobe Marketing Cloud gives businesses everything they need to get deep insights into their customers, build personalized campaigns, and manage their content and assets. It is the most comprehensive set of marketing solutions integrated through a robust set of platform and core services. But the platform is not about just delivering these three clouds in isolation. We're working on integrations across these clouds to help customers with specific business opportunities. Our ecosystem today is already big and growing. A community of over 5 million users sharing portfolios and ideas on Behance. A marketplace of stock, fonts, training and talent. System integrators and agencies who develop end-to-end solutions and implementations. And technology partners who integrate their complementary capabilities like e-commerce, CRM and procurement systems. Our platform is the foundation for individuals and companies to build their businesses on. With our platform and cloud-based offerings, we offer customers one streamlined workflow across the entire content lifecycle. We help you make standout content for every device with dynamic content and responsive design. Manage and deliver personalized experiences across channels, understanding the customer profile and context, and orchestrating across numerous touchpoints. And measure content to track results and predict outcomes, optimizing the customer experience. No other software company can make this end-to-end workflow happen, from an asset being created in Photoshop to an offer being served up to the customer just at the right moment.
So let's talk about security and compliance. Let's start with the Creative Cloud.
In order to deliver customer experiences, our platform and cloud-based offerings need to meet stringent security requirements. Creative Cloud for Enterprise is SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001-2013 certified. Creative Cloud for Enterprise is also FedRAMP Taylor certified. In addition to Creative Cloud for Enterprise is GLBA ready and FERPA ready. The Adobe.com e-commerce store is already PCI DSS Level 1 compliant as a merchant. The Adobe Document Cloud is also SOC 2 Type 2, security and availability, ISO 27001-2013, and PCI DSS 3.2, merchant and service provider certified. Adobe Document Cloud, the PDF services and Adobe Sign are FedRAMP Tailored certified. Adobe Sign, Acrobat DC and Reader DC are Safe Biopharma certified. Adobe Document Cloud is GLBA ready and FERPA ready. And Adobe Sign is FDA 21, CFR Part 11 and HIPAA compliant. Note this excludes Adobe's Send and Track service. Under FERPA guidelines, Adobe can contractually agree to act as a school official when it comes to handling regulated student data and therefore to enable our education customers to comply with FERPA requirements. And Adobe services as GLBA ready or FERPA ready or GDPR ready means the service can be used in a way that enables the customer to help meet its legal obligations related to the use of a service providers. Ultimately, the customer is responsible for ensuring compliance with legal obligations, that the Adobe service meets its compliance needs, and the customer secures the service appropriately. For more compliance details, please see the Adobe Cloud Services Overview White Paper on our chat pod or at http://security/resources.html.
Customer data confidentiality. Adobe always treats customer data as confidential. For more information on Adobe's privacy practices and for info around GDPR, please visit the Adobe Privacy Center on the URL below or in the chat pod listed.
Adobe Creative and Document Clouds for Enterprise. Identity Systems. Let's talk about the two major types of deployment available today: serialized deployment and named user deployment. Serial number deployment was the standard way software was deployed for many years. The software is packaged with an embedded serial number, and this serialized software can work completely offline and no connection to the internet is required. Managing serial number deployments require counting licenses for compliance. That can be a lot of work for IT organizations. Plus, redeploying licenses require you to uninstall them. Some of our customers are very good at counting licenses, but many others struggle with this task. If your users want to use Adobe Creative Cloud services, serial number deployment is not possible. With a serial number, since there's no login, there's zero access to cloud services and storage. All new Creative Cloud for Enterprise agreements include services. Since you are paying for these valuable services, it is a good idea to find a way to utilize them in your environment. Let's talk next about a named user deployment. With named user deployment, the software is deployed in an unlicensed state. In order to access the software on your desktop, your employees must log in to activate the software with a username and password. Named user deployment isn't exclusive to Adobe, by the way. Enterprise offerings such as Office 365 and Google Docs are catching on in a big way in large organizations. A user list and associated login rights are managed on the Adobe Enterprise dashboard. Since Adobe supports single sign-on, your users can log in using the standard enterprise username and password. So here's our employee Joe. Once a seat is assigned to him, Joe can log in and use the Creative Cloud applications on his PC or Mac. Now, because each Creative Cloud license allows for 2 installations, we can even extend Joe a license to compliantly use the software at home, which is a great employee benefit. If Joe leaves the organization, we simply remove him from the Creative Cloud user list, and his software will be deactivated both from work and from home. Now we can assign that license to another user, so unlike offline deployment, you don't need to uninstall to stay compliant. With an enterprise ID-based deployment, cloud storage or services are configurable. You can enable and disable non-core services to customize the service offering for your needs. However, if your organization isn't ready yet for cloud services and storage, you can still enjoy the license compliance benefits of using named user deployment, since Adobe can turn off these services at the switch for your organization. So, named user management has some tremendous benefits. Named user management is kind of a catch-all because in reality, Adobe supports multiple identity types for named user management. Adobe supports Adobe ID, Enterprise ID, and Federated ID. Let's discuss how these identity types differ. Let's first take a look at Adobe ID. Adobe ID is the standard public identity mechanism used on the Adobe website, and in fact, Adobe ID is used for a variety of purposes such as software registration, licensing website access, and as an authentication method to various services such as Acrobat.com and more. One thing you should know is that Adobe IDs are created, owned, and managed by the individual. Adobe performs the authentication and the end user manages the identity. Adobe ID users also retain complete control over files and data associated with their IDs. Thus, Adobe IDs are malleable and anyone with an Adobe ID can change their email addresses and any other profile information associated with it. Since the user owns the account, they cannot be locked out from their Adobe ID accounts, and their accounts cannot be deleted and taken over by you as an admin. Notwithstanding, if your organization works with outside contractors, especially those that supply their own hardware, Adobe ID actually is a good option. You can grant contractors and freelancers a license to the software during that limited period of time and take it away when the work is complete. Enterprise IDs, on the other hand, are created, owned, and managed by an organization. Adobe once again hosts the Enterprise ID and performs authentication, but the organization maintains the Enterprise ID. You, as an admin, create an Enterprise ID and issue it to a user from the Adobe Enterprise dashboard. Admins can revoke access to products and services by taking over the account or deleting the Enterprise ID to permanently block access to associated data. Thus, Enterprise IDs offer much more control. Admins even control password schemes and even set length, complexity, and cycling options, including 2 PCI compliant options. Federated IDs are created and owned by an organization and linked to the enterprise directory via federation. The organization manages credentials and processes single sign-on via a SAML 2.0 identity provider. Using Federated ID, your users use the existing federation infrastructure, so there isn't a burden on the IT to manage a separate set of passwords. Because of the link to your federation infrastructure, when an employee leaves your organization, their access to the software and services is terminated automatically. To use the software on the desktop, your users will need to log in to authenticate. You can choose a variety of authentication methods, but probably the most popular is to use federation or single sign-on. Users simply enter their corporate email addresses in the login screen, and since Adobe knows which domains have been claimed by our customers, once the end user hits the tab or clicks the password field, they are redirected to your organization's single sign-on page. So let's do a demonstration of the admin console. The first page you'll land on when you first log into the admin console is the overview page. And from the overview page you can see what products are available, how many you have purchased or committed to, and how many have been consumed. To assign further users individually, you can press the Assign Users button, type in their email, and then press Save. An alternative to adding users individually is to go to the Users tab and use the functions available on the 3 dots on the top right. You can add users by CSV, edit users by CSV, or remove users by CSV. You're also able to define user groups, or add further administrators, or view people within certain domains. In order to take advantage of Enterprise IDs and Federated IDs, all you need to do is to navigate to the Settings tab of your admin console and claim your domains and configure your directories and tie them together. Once this is done, you can use your Federated IDs or your Enterprise IDs. You'll notice on the left-hand side Authentication Settings. This is where you're going to customize for your Adobe IDs and Enterprise IDs your password expirations. So you can set it to never expire, expire every 90 days, or expire every 60 days. You'll also be able to control your users' sharing capabilities by going to Asset Settings. Through Asset Settings you can have no restrictions, which means they can share to anybody, or you can disable public link sharing, or you can share only to people within your domains. If you want to share to people outside of your domains, you can whitelist domains as well. Under Access Request Policy, this allows you to allow people to request access to the asset owner. Another good thing to know is your content logs. Content logs are reports on your assets of your enterprise and federated users and their activities. So you create a report based on a date range, so you'll select a date range as you can see, and then you'll create the report here, and from there you'll generate a report that lists all the creation dates, modification dates, sharing dates, deletion dates, anything that has anything to do with your federated or enterprise users you'll be able to see. Another key feature of the admin console is to create packages. Through the Packages tab, you'll be able to press Create a Package, and you can build a corresponding package, whether it be just the self-service package or a managed package where you can actually select what software you want to include in the package to package over to your client computer. You'll also have a few tools available on the admin console, including the DC Customization Wizard, a remote update manager, which allows you to invoke updates remotely, or an internal server setup tool, which you can use instead of the Adobe Update Server. The last thing on the admin console is your support tab. From here you can create cases, you can request expert sessions, or you can talk to our live experts, which are via phone or by chat.
Data encryption, architecture, access controls, and data centers. The enterprise security that we have put together can be summarized into 3 buckets. The first, access. This is broken down into identity, encryption in motion, encryption at rest, and a dedicated encryption key. In essence, every single CCE customer gets AES 128-bit GCM encryption over TLS 1.2 for content in motion, and AES 256-bit server-side encryption for content at rest. They can log into a CCE using their standard corporate identity system, such as an Active Directory over SAML 2.0. Unpacking that, we have HTTPS/SSL is the common term for a couple of features. HTTPS, which in our case stands for HTTP Secure, and indicates that this communication is occurring over port 443. SSL, or Secure Sockets Layer, is actually a misnomer, as we're utilizing TLS, or Transport Layer Security, which effectively replaced SSL a couple of years ago. TLS, like SSL, is basically a cryptographic protocol for secure communication over a network. But HTTPS/SSL is such a common term, we just tend to leave it as it stands, which is why you see both HTTPS/SSL and TLS. AES, or Advanced Encryption Standard, which is a standard specification for encryption of electronic data. For content in motion, the 128-bit GCM means that we're using 128-bit keys to encrypt or unencrypt data. This is like a 16-character password using pretty much any combination of keys. You can type in your keyboard. GCM technically means the Galois counter mode, which is essentially a very high-speed and efficient means of encryption. So Creative Cloud can have really high volumes of secure throughput without significant slowdown due to security. For content at rest, AES 256 means you have a 32-character key, so it's much stronger and harder to break. FIPS 140-2 is a NIST standard, which basically states that a security module must pass specific requirements, such as providing tamper evidence or zeroing data when certain events occur. This is really the government standard that covers the old Mission Impossible, this message will self-destruct in 2 seconds. NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is a government agency that controls, wait for it, standards. From cryptography to weights and measures to, most interestingly, the quantum clock, which tells time based on the vibration of an ion of aluminium and is accurate to the second for the next 4 billion years. But I digress. The dedicated encryption key is covered in the next slide. The next, control, which is all about the Adobe processes and tools that we use to ensure security. The Adobe Secure product lifecycle is managed by the Adobe Secure software engineering team. They are a group of security researchers who work with the product team engineers to ensure the SPLC is followed so that security is built into our products. We also have a very regimented operational security. This is all about how we run Adobe technically. IDS/IDP are intrusion detection and prevention systems with alerts that let our security response team know that that something is out of the ordinary. AWS is the Amazon Web Services architecture in which we not only deliver best-in-class industry standard security, but as an aside, Adobe has worked with Amazon to specifically come up with a set of security standards and protocols for our cloud so that we are only implementing AWS standards that apply to Adobe and make our solution more secure for our customers. And finally, compliance, which shows the processes, standards, and regulations that we adhere to. SOC 2 Type 2 and iOS 27001 are standard security certifications performed by third-party vendors showing Adobe's compliance to literally hundreds of controls ranging from coding standards to employee vetting to security processes within our company. We can send you the ISO 27001 certificate today. And if you're under NDA, we can also send the SOC 2 report. Note the CCE is now FedRAMP tailored certified. We provide more detail later in the deck. Security architecture. You have the clients. These are your CCE clients such as the desktop and mobile apps, your browser, iPad, iPhone, etc. These access CCE via the public internet using HTTPS/TLS as discussed before. The other clients are the creative services such as Stock and Typekit, and these pretty much all live on Amazon. The Adobe Network Cloud stands for our own Adobe Network services such as our identity servers, the enterprise dashboard servers, internal monitoring and security, client services, as well as analytics, target, and marketing cloud services. These live in different environments ranging from AWS to our own Adobe data centers. CCE itself lives within a specific AWS region. We have 3 regions, US East, EU Ireland, and APAC Tokyo. So when one of our clients attempts to connect to their appropriate region, they're actually taken to a VPC, or Virtual Private Cloud. A VPC is a logically isolated network within AWS. There are 2 VPCs of note here, the Creative Cloud and the Document Cloud. These are really the web front ends to the clouds. Part of the AWS feature set is the ability to have availability zones. An availability zone is actually an isolated location within a region. However, from a network architecture perspective, it lives within your VPC. Physically, each availability zone has 3 different redundant data centers. So all data is actually replicated across all 3 data centers, and technically within multiple servers within each data center. This redundant backup ensures that your customer's data is safe from disasters, floods, power failures, etc. Everything within the VPC is actually locked down by an AWS security group. Those are the green keys there. A security group is another layer of control that allows Adobe to control the inbound and outbound traffic through the VPC like another virtual firewall. Also, within the VPC is something called subnets. A subnet is really a range of IP addresses. A public subnet is connected to the internet at large, and a private subnet is not. The private subnet is where the actual instances of CCE live and really where all the work happens. Private subnets are only accessible through connections originating from the public subnet. So there's no way for someone to connect directly to, say, the storage or image service. They can only get there through the public interface in the public subnet. This allows Adobe to make sure that only validated users are performing certain actions. So when a customer wants to, say, save a piece of content such as a PSD, that actually happens in the shared cloud. The shared cloud infrastructure on the right actually handles things such as content storage, login, generating previews, etc. The shared cloud infrastructure is leveraged by the marketing cloud. File storage then happens from the private subnet of the shared cloud. We encrypt the content as noted before and store it in an S3 bucket, which is a way for AWS to quickly store content and automatically replicate it across the data centers within the availability zone. And we store metadata in a MongoDB instance for faster search results. When someone retrieves content, it actually comes via the shared cloud and is then passed back to the user. If a user is accessing an Adobe service such as stock, we have architected the system so that even though the call may actually come from a client on the desktop, it passes through the cloud security architecture and only valid requests are received by the service. Along with all of that, Adobe has set up automated login. So key actions and activities are logged. These are things like access, login, storage, retrieval, and etc. This actually happens through something called VPC peering. VPC peering is a private connection that allows VPCs to talk to one another as if they're on the same network. It's important here to point out the arrows. And in fact, if you look, those green arrows are one way from CCE to the login instances. That means that within the code itself, CCE calls the login service. That AWS login box actually has no way to access either CCE or the shared cloud. Again, this is for security. And this holds true as well for things like logging in, analytics, accessing typekit, stock, and etc. Only specific requests are allowed into CCE and only from specific types of clients. And in fact, you'll notice that aside from calls from the clients, the only other access into CCE comes from the Adobe network. For the most part, this is directly to the login services for monitoring, performance metrics, resource utilization checks, notification and alarms, and etc. So looking at this whole diagram, you can track the steps that a piece of content goes through. For example, say you want to upload a file to assets.adobe.com, you'll start from the CCE client cloud, which makes a request using HTTPS/TOS to the CCE VPC's public subnet. CCE then calls out to the Adobe network, which will then go through login procedure using your federated or enterprise ID. Once you're in an authorized user, the CCE private subnet will open an internal data connection to the shared cloud and then authorize itself to the shared cloud's public subnet. If everything's okay to this point, the shared cloud's public subnet will pass your information and content to the shared cloud private subnet, which will initiate the storage procedure. It will go through the encryption process, encrypt the content and store it. AWS login will log and monitor the transaction and automated processes on the Adobe side, which will watch out for anything out of the ordinary. All Adobe Document Cloud data centers are currently hosted by Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Adobe Document Cloud is added Microsoft Azure data centers based on the expanded partnership for our Microsoft customers. Starting in the US in the summer of 2018, we've continued expansion also into EMEA in 2019. PDF services and Document Cloud file storage is only hosted in AWS US East in Virginia, and Adobe Sign is hosted around the world in 6 data centers divided by geography. The first, US Geo, is located in Virginia, which is primary active, and Northern California for disaster recovery or passive. EU Geo is located in Frankfurt, Germany, and is primary active, and Dublin, Ireland for disaster recovery or passive. Japan Geo is located in Tokyo, Japan, and is active only. Australia Geo is located in Sydney, Australia, and is active only. India Geo is located in Mumbai, India, and is active only. Adobe Sign infrastructure resides in American National Standards Institute Tier 4 data centers managed by our trusted cloud service provider, Amazon Web Services. All hosting partners maintain very strict controls around data center access, fault tolerance, environmental controls, and security. Only approved, authorized Adobe employees, cloud service provider employees, and contractors with a legitimate documented business are allowed access to the secured sites in North America, Japan, Australia, and the European Union. Additionally, as part of our commitment to security, Adobe reviews compliance attestations such as SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001 reports on a regular basis. Additionally, Adobe actively monitors all Adobe Sign components using industry-standard intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. Next, we have Adobe's security approach. At Adobe, we take the security of your data and digital experience seriously. To protect from the software layer down, we use the Adobe Secure Product Lifecycle, a rigorous set of several hundred specific security activities spanning software development practices, processes, and tools integrated into multiple stages of the product lifecycle. To protect from the physical layer up, we are implementing a foundational framework of security processes and controls to protect our infrastructure, applications and services, and help us comply with a number of industry-accepted best practices, standards, and certifications. The Adobe Security Stack builds security in at every level, using automation and consistency to reduce human error. Development and operation teams automatically inherit security controls from different levels of the stack. The Adobe Security Stack builds security in at every level, using automation and consistency to reduce human error. Development and operation teams automatically inherit security controls from different levels of the stack. The Common Controls Framework, or CCF, is an Adobe-developed framework of controls, processes, automations, and functionality across our environment to enable us to rationalize and more quickly reach adherence to various commonly accepted standards and regulations. The framework was also designed to be flexible, enabling our organization and systems to more quickly implement new regulations and standards as it becomes necessary to meet customer requirements. A rigorous set of several hundred specific security activities spanning software development practices, processes, and tools, the Adobe Secure Product Lifecycle, or SPLC, is integrated into multiple stages of the product and service lifecycle, from design and development to quality assurance, testing, and development. Adobe Security researchers provide specific SPLC guidance for each key product or service based on an assessment of potential security issues, complemented by continuous community engagement. The Adobe SPLC evolves to stay current as changes occur in technology, security practices, and the threat landscape. Most security approaches focus on decreasing the time for each phase of the attack post-breach. Adobe's core strategy is to reduce our vulnerability to security threats using proactive measures that make exploits more and more difficult to create. This means spending more effort building defense mechanisms into our products and infrastructure that make attacks considerably less likely to succeed and cause damage to customers or our systems. This is combined with ongoing analysis of what the actual goals and objectives of potential adversaries are, enabling ever more targeted measures. Our end goal is to reduce the mean time to detection as low as possible and enable built-in defense mechanisms and automations to defend against the attack as quickly as possible, thus limiting or eliminating any possible real damage. Most security approaches focus on decreasing the time for each phase of the attack post-breach. Adobe's core strategy is to reduce our vulnerability to security threats using proactive measures that make exploits more and more difficult to create. This means spending more effort building defense mechanisms into our products and infrastructure that make attacks considerably less likely to succeed and cause damage to customers or our systems. This is combined with ongoing analysis of what the actual goals and objectives of potential adversaries are, enabling ever more targeted measures. Our end goal is to reduce the mean time to detection as low as possible and enable built-in defense mechanisms and automations to defend against the attack as quickly as possible, thus limiting or eliminating any possible real damage. Additionally, we have numerous resources that can help and that will be supplied with this webinar. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our event. Thank you for joining us today. We would appreciate you taking the time to fill out our feedback questions appearing in the survey pod on your screen. You can find reference resources in the resource pod. If you would like to be contacted, please send us a note using the Contact Us window. A recording of this session will be provided in the coming days. You may now disconnect.